Penn State football gets another commit in the class of 2024. We're here to break it down. Fitz, this is a pretty full class now. Suddenly, after just a couple of weeks, we are, I know this is going to be a bigger class, but we're a little bit of, are we around halfway in this class right now?
Yeah, right around. I mean, it's creeping up there. Every time you look, there's somebody new from Wisconsin. Apparently, that's a new trend. So now they've added a second running back to the class in Catholic Memorial, Wisconsin running back Corey Smith. Corey visited twice this spring, most recently for the Blue-White game. Very, very good vibes for Penn State coming out of the Blue-White game. Thought he was actually going to pop that day. Turns out he didn't. Went home, thought about it. Watched teammate Donnie Harbor commit to Penn State last week, and then all of a sudden Penn State now has teammates from Catholic Memorial. So another running back, another 4-star by the On3 industry rankings, and the Nittany Lions continue to roll this spring.
It's a really interesting situation with Corey Smith and Quentin Martin, both as the running backs in this class. What do you know about I always like to start with this of like, you mentioned really good, visited 2 times this spring, Blue-White game was great. How far back does this relationship go, and how long has this recruitment gone for the Nittany Lions?
Well, it's not a long-term relationship by any stretch of the imagination. Smith, picked up the offer this offseason, and, Penn State, they don't spend a ton of time in Wisconsin. Like let's start there. You look at what they've been able to do, and it's all kind of funny when you take a look at that. This is not a hotbed. You've got Jerry Cross, you've got Rob Windsor, and that's about it. But this is a manner of them casting a wide net, positionally and nationally. Of course, Ja'Juan Seider. Every time we talk about that running back board, we talk about how big it is and how there's no geographical bearing on which way he likes to go. Obviously, he likes his Florida guys, but he'll go all over the country. He'll recruit California. He'll apparently recruit Wisconsin. Of course, he'll recruit Florida, Georgia, all the way down there. And then Virginia has been fantastic with it. There's no rhyme or reason. He just wants to go out and find the best backs. They got London Montgomery from in-state last year. You got Cam Wallace from Georgia last year. I mean, it's all over the map. So with Corey Smith, he was one of those guys that picked up one of those offseason offers, showed interest. I think it's interesting the window that Wisconsin football is in right now, that there is interest in out-of-state other Big Ten schools. And for a while, that wasn't the case. So with Corey Smith, it kind of came together. He came in March. He visited Pittsburgh a day and then came up, visited Penn State, was really impressed by Penn State, came back. I mean, it's one of those recruitments where, yes, you knew he was impressed by Penn State, but I don't think you got the scope and the magnitude of how impressed he was until he got to the Blue-White game. I mean, Ryan and I were talking during the game that Smith was basically telling the staff he was coming, and the people around him were like, "Hey, let's tap the brakes here. Let's make a sound, thought out decision." And then, lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he's a member of the Nittany Lions class. So it came up pretty quickly. But you take a look at the constructs of this class. Quentin Martin on board puts a little bit more pressure on the other back, and you hate to call him the other back because these guys don't think of themselves as a complementary piece or another secondary piece to Martin. But that's kind of how it came together. It was quick. It was just one of those typical Ja'Juan Seider recruitments where all of a sudden you're in it, you're deep in it, and then you get it across the line.
We'll talk a little bit in T. Frank's film room here at the end, but I want to get your thoughts too as well on fit and what stands out to you about how Corey Smith fits with the Nittany Lions and the Mike Yursich offense that he's being recruited to.
I think it's really interesting the way that Penn State's built this running back room because Penn State fans want to see Kaytron Allen. They want to see the Big Ten back. They want to, I think Wisconsin fans too. They want to see Ron Dane. It's kind of how this has worked in the last couple of decades in Big Ten football. But you want to see that 6 foot, 220 back that can go and carry the load in November as we throw out our cliches for Big Ten football. I don't think Smith is that guy. He's an all-around back, catches the ball well, very elusive, cutter, and all that kind of stuff, but he's not an overpowering back. I think he reminds me a lot of London Montgomery from last year. And you're stacking kind of the same body types, 5'11", 175, kind of similar speed. I think Corey Smith was in the 11.1s in track last spring. He has not run the 100 this year yet, he told me, but that'll be coming at some point, I think, as it warms up and as he gets ready for the district, states, regionals, whatever you may have in Wisconsin track and field. And you'd like to see that number dip below 11, but he was close enough as a sophomore. So I think that that's encouraging. So yeah, I like the Montgomery comparison. I think he's maybe a little bit more elusive in the open field, and he catches the ball very well. So I think that that's what you're looking for, is a similar back to what they got last year in London Montgomery. And I'm excited to see how they use those guys that can catch the ball, how those guys can move around, how those guys that can get downfield and catch the ball. It's not just about catching a swing pass. It's not just catching a screen pass. It is being a weapon downfield. And I think that's one thing that Corey Smith does really well.
Yes, and you know, I think that there's some with Quentin Martin, and to bring him into this conversation as well, there's some overlap there with Martin being quasi receiver at times last year for Bell Vernon. So I guess the question I have is, with Wallace, Montgomery, now with Corey Smith, and I'll even throw this out there. I know that he's got a big frame, and I know there's a lot of growth and development potential, so maybe long-term you're not worried about this, but I don't think Quentin Martin has exceptional power right now to run through the line of scrimmage and to be kind of a power back. Do you think that that is a concern kind of with this next wave of running backs behind the guys that are on the roster right now, or is that something that will work itself out in the future, and that's not something you're not looking for, maybe a transfer portal back or something like that can fill that specific need?
Yeah, you're always looking for the best back. I mean, it's a matter of, is this guy a power back, a speed back, a scat back, whatever. I mean, you're looking for the best back. And, if you think Corey Smith, one of their top 5 guys on the board, you're feeling pretty good about where you stand if that's your evaluation. So this is, as I sound like Nate with my, this is a situation where you've got 2 more years of Singleton and Kaytron Allen, and then I think it's going to be everybody else. It's going to be a very interesting scenario there where you've got 2 really, really good backs that we think are going to be NFL draft picks, and then those other guys have to sort of bide their time and figure this stuff out. Can you bring in a guy that is similar to a Kaytron Allen that can carry that traditional Big Ten load that we joked about earlier? You can. I don't know if it's going to be another guy in 2024 or you get into 2025. Keandre Barker's already committed for 2025. So I'm curious to see which direction you're going, because you have, I think that's the interesting part. You have had success with backs like that, with a back like that, at least with Kaytron Allen, and to a lesser extent, a couple of years ago, when Kevon Lee was a freshman, you had some success with that. So I don't think that there's a Mike Yursich standard here, and that's probably the thing that I would take away from it. There's backs of all shapes and sizes. There's backs that can do multiple things, and Corey Smith's another guy that can do just a lot. He's stop and start. He's very good. He's not your your inside zone, outside zone, one cut guy. Like, he's a guy that can get out, stop and start and do some really nice things. So I think that you give yourself some versatility, you give yourself some options there out of the backfield. And I think that other stuff will probably take care of it later, and you find yourself a big back at some other point.
If you want to check out the full T. Frank's film room over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, it's coming up just a little bit after this video comes out. But I'll give you a little bit of what I found watching some of his full game highlights. And the thing I want to highlight first is actually his offense. You mentioned he's not just an inside zone, outside zone guy. They ran inverted quarterback options. They ran him as a jet sweep guy. He was blocking. He was doing a lot of advanced, like, college level stuff. And when you fold in, as you saw on his highlight package, his ability to run routes down the field and catch the ball outside his frame, the versatility here is exceptional. I think better than Martin in terms of, like, positional skills. He's a better receiver. He runs better routes. Now, he's not a receiver level route runner yet, but he does have some of those skills you're looking for. You mentioned the vision and the speed. While he maybe doesn't have Nick Singleton speed, you mentioned his stop-start. He doesn't really lose momentum when breaking tackles and getting out into the open field, and when he gets into the secondary. I really like that because, kind of like I talk about functional length along the offensive line. Functional speed is a thing as well of, if you get tripped up and you slow down, it's not as helpful. So the versatility, his contact balance, his vision at the line of scrimmage and in the secondary, and for a guy that is as elusive, I don't feel like he dances a lot. So there's a lot of really good things that I like for Corey Smith. I think he's a huge win for Penn State in this class to get a guy of that caliber. And tackle breaking at a certain point, kind of putting all this in a nutshell, tackle breaking becomes a skill at a certain point. It's not just about how big you are. It's not just about how fast you can be. he has that innate ability, you mentioned London Montgomery, to break tackles. And I think that's something that's really huge for these guys. So now that we're here at the end of the video, and I have forgotten once again because I get so excited about these breaking down these players, please like the video, subscribe to Blue White Illustrated on YouTube and BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Fitz, any final thoughts here or any looking ahead for what Penn State fans should expect next?
I think it's really interesting the way that Penn State has attacked Wisconsin this offseason. Obviously, there's a coaching change there, so a bit of a window, but Penn State been successful in landing Donnie Harbour and landing Garrett Sexton and now landing Corey Smith. It's a very interesting juxtaposition when you take a look at Wisconsin, and it just seems like they have handled these guys differently. We'll say that. And on the flip side, Wisconsin got Kamir Prescott from Northeast and Philly yesterday, and Penn State fans are saying the same thing about Prescott that Wisconsin fans are saying about these guys. So just a really interesting way to look at recruiting. It's always fun. But Penn State, I did not have this on my Penn State recruiting bingo card in the class of 2024 to pull 3 guys from Wisconsin in this class. It's pretty crazy how that came together.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And the guy that I think we haven't talked about enough, or that people haven't watched the video enough, just looking at our videos, is Garrett Sexton. I don't think Penn State fans should overlook Garrett Sexton. So if you haven't checked that video out, I'll throw that in the title screen here at the end so that you can check out Garrett Sexton, because that, I think, is a huge win for them on the offensive line. And the trio of players they've got here is going to be very fascinating to watch in the future. Fitz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
We will be back on Monday with the BWI live recruiting show, and we'll have some draft coverage as well, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Check out all of that, but we'll always be back with the next breaking news commitment, Blue White Illustrated.